I'm going to talk about this, which is quite potentially an interesting, slightly different topic for these kind of meetups. So, did anybody go to Chris's usability talk this morning? Can I get a quick show of hands? That's amazing. So there's so much interest in being UX stat today, so that's really cool. So, before I get into it, I just need to mention, it does include a bit of DIY. Now, I've done this talk at different kind of community meetups, like designers. They get a little bit nervous about this kind of stuff. So I figure I have to give you that kind of warning. You know, like on Match of the Day, or on the news on Saturday tea time, when they're about to tell you the football scores and they give you 2 minutes to leave the room. I'm going to do that before we get to the DIY bit. So if anybody's really not comfortable with DIY, you can like nip outside, have a fag, whatever you need to do. But what I'm going to do, like the bee, I'm not actually going to give you enough time to leave the room before I start, so you'll catch the first bit of it. Anywho. Hello, yes, that's me. I'm everywhere, if I'm honest. Find me, say hello. I work here, which just about shows up on this monitor, which is good. I'm based up in Salford, so I am from the north, if you can tell with my accent, so I do apologise. The team I work in at the BBC does these lovely things. So we do the food, we do BBC Bite Size, and we do I Wonder. And the eagle-eyed will already notice how efficient we are at reusing your licence fee, because we've got the same image there. We didn't commission 2 photographs. See, we're good like that. Quickly, I really like this. I also really like this. Neither of them have got anything to do with this talk, but I like seeing them on a big screen. I also really like this. And where is it? Wait for it. Hey! Keynote, it's great. So, you guys seem to be pretty much in that kind of camp. Although I get the impression there's a few of you that might be in this kind of segment. I'm kind of there, and I like it there, it's cool. So I'm going to give you a little insight into my bit there today. I also want to get a Venn diagram out of the way pretty quick. I do have a cat later as well, but it's not animated. I do this in Manchester. Some other people help me in Leeds, Newcastle and Liverpool. We are a user experience kind of meetup group. We do a conference every year. We did one last week. It was tiring, and these guys here do an amazing job because it's a lot of work doing this. A lot of sleepless nights in the run-up to it, a lot of running around like headless chickens on the day, so they do an amazing job. Thank you, guys. So yes, why you're all sat here listening to each other. Usability testing. I've done a lot of this over the years. When you say usability testing to some people, they kind of think that, which is probably the most expensive, over-engineered laboratory I've ever seen in my life. That's what other people think. That's weird. When I think of usability testing, I tend to think of that. Two-way mirrors are horrible. Everybody knows what's going on behind it. Everybody's seen CSI. The reality is that this mic's not very good. And now it's back. Okay. So over the years, when I've worked a long time in agencies, and I've noticed that a lot of clients and stakeholders get a little bit nervous about the idea of usability testing. We have some friends at e-consultancy, and a couple of years ago they commissioned a report where they spoke to loads of agencies, loads of in-house teams, loads of clients, all about their attitudes towards usability testing. And the two main themes that came out of that about why people were a little bit scared of it was that they thought it cost a fortune and it took ages, which for most organisations, taking ages also means cost a fortune. I've kind of quizzed some of my clients in the past on a little bit more depth about this. And basically, it seems to come down to these 4 themes. They think the hardware is really complicated and really expensive. They think the software is really complicated and really expensive. They think recruiting people is really complicated and really expensive. And they think reporting takes ages and is really fucking boring. Really boring. And the only bit they're right about is that last bit. So what I figured was I would put together this kind of talk to try and debunk some of those myths and just show that it doesn't have to be. So, can I get a quick show of hands who recognises this chap? Okay, there's a few. That's kind of more than I expected, to be fair, that's cool. Before you all throw things at me because of the awful pun, this is not my pun. This is the Silverback gorilla, and he is the mascot for a piece of software called Silverback, which is a Mac app for doing guerrilla usability testing. It's great. It's been around for a few years, to the point where it's now the industry standard. It looks like a Mac app, it works like a Mac app, so it's all nice and shiny and slick, and it's got really beautiful kind of flows through it as you try and use it. It's really nice. The problem with it was when the new generation of MacBooks came out with a HD webcam, Apple rewrote all the drivers for that, and it completely broke Silverback. And because the guys that write Silverback aren't a software house, they're a web development company, web design agency, I should say. They didn't have the support to fix it, so what they did is they made it free, while they went and tried to write a new one, which they're still trying to do, with not a lot of success. But the upshot is, if you have a slightly older generation MacBook, you can get this kit for free. It used to be $60, so it was never expensive. The UI kind of looks like this. Can you even see what that means? Yeah. Okay, there's some. It's just a nice little workspace, really. There's projects. Each project has got a number of sessions, and each session has a thing, and that thing is your person and some info about them. So that's what you use to record it. The end product looks like that. If anybody was in Chris's session and they saw some of his videos, that's kind of what it looks like. It captures your desktop, it captures the cursor. When your man clicks something, it kind of goes boom, so you can see where it's clicked. It's really nice. You get a little picture of your participant. I like to use Anakin to test because he's really grumpy, so he finds lots of problems. He can be a little bit harsh if he doesn't like it, though. Yeah, and that's kind of what Silverback produces. The problem is, what about PCs? So there is a piece of kit for the PC called Moray, but it's about $2 grand, $3 grand, so it's not so cheap. It's amazing. It does everything in the world you want it to do, including beams your recordings live to Mars. But it's $3 grand. And one of the things, if you remember, about the pain points for trying to sell testing into clients is that they think it's expensive, and Moray is. There is some stuff out on the PC. Probably the most popular one is a piece of kit called Camtasia. There's some older stuff. This chap here wrote a blog post in 2009 where he listed all the software that was around at the time. Half of that software is still going around. Half of it is still the same version that was around in 2009, so it's not necessarily the slickest, nicest piece of kit you'll ever use, but it is around. I was doing a bit of a hunt the other day for anything going around at the moment, and I found this. Ovo Solo, it's a catchy name. Yeah. So I tried to download it, and I realised that it's not exactly the most maintained piece of software you'll ever see in your life. So I sent the guys a tweet, and it was really nice, because I kind of thought they probably went bust or something. But no, they are still alive and kicking. So you can still download it. I haven't managed to download it yet, because when you try and download it, you have to fill in feedback form. And I filled in the feedback form and I haven't heard anything since, so good luck with that. But Camtasia. So, generally speaking, testing on a desktop is pretty straightforward. There's a few bits of kit out there, none of them are particularly expensive, they're all pretty straightforward to use. It's all good. Mobile, however, makes people very, very nervous, even if they've got their head around desktop testing. People start thinking about these different phones and different sizes and, oh God, what if I'm wandering around with it and all that kind of stuff. So it does make people really nervous. So I figured I'd put a picture of a cat in. What you can't see is just over there, there's a man just about to remove one of the supporting bricks. Sorry. But yeah, my laboured pun. So just looking at those pain points again, hardware. So this is the DIY bit. Is everybody okay with DIY bit? It'll only be about a couple of minutes. If you're worried, it's fine. Cool, we're good. Okay, so this is one of my ex-colleagues now. This is my ex-colleague Ali. Can everybody just give him a wave and say hello, Ali? Go on. Hey, that's a better reception than I usually get. Thank you. So I used to work with Ali, and Ali has a shed. He loves sheds, and he likes tinkering. So we were having a discussion one time, and we were talking about how you test on a mobile device, and we found this thing on the internet called a Mr. Tappy. I don't know if you've ever come across it. It's beautiful. It's like a piece of sculpture made out of aircraft-grade aluminium and costs about some hundreds of dollars. But it's beautiful. But if you remember what I was talking about things being expensive, as soon as you go into 3 figures, it becomes a barrier to entry for convincing clients that actually, let's just try this thing. So we did some shopping, and what we worked out was that you go on Amazon, or an online vendor of choice, but let's face it, Amazon's always cheapest. So you go on Amazon, and you get one of these. You can make out what that is, can't you? It's a little webcam on a bendy thing, and it costs about 40 quid. You then, looks like that. You keep that bit, you throw away that bit, well, put it in the drawer, put it back in the box, put it in the drawer in case it breaks and you send it back. But you don't need that bit. You then go back on Amazon, and you buy one of these, which is a bit random. It's some like little clip-on camera lenses to put on your phone to give it wide-angle and fisheye lenses. But what amazes me about this is it's 7 quid. Can you make that for 7 quid? Can you even ship that from China for 7 quid? So you grab that, and that comes, and it looks like this. And to be honest, they're beautiful. They look really nice. I haven't actually tried using the lenses, so I don't know if they're any good, but it looks really nice. Which is a shame, because you only need that bit. Not those bits. But hey, 6 quid. Actually, I admit, last night, I was just kind of going through the slides, as you do before you do it all, tweaking. And I had a quick look at Amazon again, and that's now 4 quid. Crazy. So any maths you see later, just knock 2-3 quid off. And then you buy some cable ties, which, if you've got a shed, you'll probably have some of these already. I don't. I have a drawer, so it's mainly full of like all the travel plugs and stuff. But I had a little look on Amazon, and what I love about Amazon's kind of economy is that it's cheaper to buy 100 cable ties than it was to buy like 5 from a local hardware shop, and it's such a shame because, support your local business and all that, but really. So I have, get 100 of these. You'll probably end up like me with about 98 of them in a drawer, but they'll be useful, And that's £1.40 with free shipping. Do you know how much a padded envelope is to put them in? It's about 40p. I don't know how they do it. And then you get some of these, which you probably can't tell what these are from the back, but these are little foam sticky back pads, which are intended to be put under chair and table legs to stop them marking your beautiful parquet flooring and stuff like that. So you buy them. These particular ones, the ones I got, and they're quite big, which means you can cut them down to size, which is quite nice. And these are £3.57 when I bought them. They're probably less now. And then you get a USB extension cable, which I forgot to bring mine with me today, so I can't give you a live demo. Rookie mistake. But yeah, you get a USB extension cable, and this particular one, £1.23. Crazy. And it's really cool now because I work for the Beeb, so I can do things like that, right? So you cobble all that together, and you end up with something that looks like this. Clips onto the top of your phone, bend the thing over and point it at the screen. And the best thing about it, it's device agnostic. Close-up shot. So the clip itself, this is where the tricky bit comes in. So you see the little phone pad there? What that does, that stops these bits sticking up, smooths it out. It's beautiful. It's precision engineering, you won't believe it. And then the cable ties. That's the extreme DIY bit. They can be a little bit faffy, if I'm honest. I say I've got 98 of these left in the cupboard. I haven't, because if you notice, it takes 2. I've actually got about 95 because I broke a couple trying to do it. It's fine. Still got a few spare. So if you see that on the device, you'll see that this sticky pad is kind of on the back of the phone. And the key here is to try and make the angle that sits that flush with the device. It's getting harder and harder as phones get thinner and thinner. I'm not going to lie to you. So you might end up at a point where you have to put like a bit of rolled up fag packet in there, something like that, just to pad it out a bit. But you'd be amazed if you can get that kind of right. You'd be amazed at how stable that is when it's attached to your phone. So all that is, well, when I bought it, it was 55 quid. But I paid over the odds, haven't I? Because you can probably get that for about 50 quid now. And clearly that doesn't include the cost of the phone. And that is the DIY bit over. So we didn't lose anybody, did we? So we're okay for that code now. Okay. So software. So I'm kind of Mac-based, so most of the stuff I'm talking about is kind of Mac-biased, I do apologise. Some of it is agnostic, and some of it they do have multi-platform versions. But this particular one is really nice. The caveat I would say is, if you have to have your computer and your mobile device on the same Wi-Fi network, and what it does is you run this piece of software on your computer. The newest versions does have Windows. And it turns your computer into an AirPlay receiver, so you can put your iPhone screen mirroring onto it. It also works for Android screen share, whatever they call that kind of. I have to admit, I'm not a big fan of the Android version of it. This one, you can't really tell what it's called, Mobizone, is a free thing for Android. And this doesn't rely on a Wi-Fi connection, it actually goes out to the web and back in. But the lag on it is tiny, it's really good for what it does. But basically, both of those things are all about getting your device screen on your laptop. You then use this piece of software, which Chris mentioned earlier. This is OBS, which basically, it's free, and it's available on everything. Kind of cool. Although good luck getting the drivers for you. USB webcams to work online. But this is really cool. And what this does is it's designed to merge lots of video and audio feeds into one and then output a file of that kind of composite image. So if you've been following this, you could probably work out that that's where I was going. So what this is the IDE, I guess, for OBS. And it's really cool. This is all the merged feeds. So we've got Reflector or Mobizone mirroring the phone there. We've got the webcam pointing at the screen, showing that. And then we've got me and or Anakin in the corner. So what's going on there? That is my MacBook pointing in the general direction of the participant while they're using it. And then, pro tip, dim the screen brightness. Because if they see themselves on the screen, it really weirds them out. But once you've pressed record, you can just quickly dim the screen, it's fine. And OBS is really cool, and it comes with this concept of workspaces. So I've got, well, it uses with, I guess, media kind of terminology, but it uses these scenes. So I've got a workspace set up for iPhone, a workspace set up for Android, and each workspace is basically a set of inputs, a combination of layouts, and then some audio config. And that's what my OBS looks like when I record iOS phones. That's what it looks like when I do Android phones. Doesn't have to look like that. You can put them anywhere, you can resize them, but that for me is like a nice kind of combination, nice balance. So what's going on? The trick here is that you get a really high definition image of the website that's being tested, which is useful, but it also keeps the clients happy because they like to see what their website looks like. So they can kind of see that, and that's nice. But what that doesn't give you is the actual fingers on the screen. You can't see what they're doing, you can't see where they're scrolling, swiping, what they're tapping, which is where that comes in. So then you can kind of see how they're interacting with stuff. The little video in the corner means you can actually see the participant's face while they're using this. So you can see if they're happy, you can see if they're sad, you can see if they're absorbed, you can see if they're Darth Vader, you can see whatever's going on. And then the mic on my MacBook will be recording the audio. So I'll be asking that person, can you do this? And they'll be saying, yes, I can. And it's recording all that. And then the end result, all those things get merged into an FLV file, which is a bit weird why OBS outputs FLV files. I don't know, I think it's because it's an open source thing. And it's great. And it's just a nice little self-contained video. The combination of inputs mean you get a really good overall view of what's going on. Any one of those things in itself might give you a hint of what's going on, but the combination gives you a really nice overview of everything. And all that is about a tenner, and that's only because Reflector costs about a tenner. The gotcha there is, if you want to then share those videos with your team or other stakeholders or clients, I found quite a nice way of doing that is something like Vimeo. So if you've got like a Vimeo Plus account, you have to pay for that. But what that allows you to do is upload a load of videos to a gallery, brand it and password protect it, and then you give the client that, and then they can go and watch it on the bus, at the weekend, whenever they want. So the caveat there is that Vimeo does cost about 160 quid a year. It's a year, so it's still not too much. It's like 12, 13 quid a month. The only other gotcha is that Vimeo doesn't like FLV files. So, a couple of friends showed me this little trick. So I'm in a room where now I kind of expect a lot of you guys to understand what's going on with that. That doesn't usually happen. So basically, if you haven't got Homebrew installed, you install Homebrew. Once all that's done, you install the video converter codecs, and then you run the video converter and say, turn that file into that file. Give it about 5 minutes. Go away, make a cup of coffee, come back. It's all done. The one thing I'll say here is that because it's command line, it doesn't give you any update, so you don't know if that video is converted, apart from the fact that your fans start to whir like anything. So don't worry. Try and kind of like get like a fan and kind of keep it cool, and then at some point it'll go done and the job's okay. So that's the software. So the participant side of it. Now, Chris this morning talked a lot about some of this, and it was nice to see so many hands in the air when he was asking if anybody does testing. That was kind of really cool. So some of this stuff is probably not so new, so I won't dwell too much on it. But basically, these guys are like the godfathers of usability. They've been going for donkeys. A long time ago, they did a lot of number crunching, and they worked out that if you test with about 5 people, you're probably going to find about 85% of the problems. Any more than that, and you start finding the same problems again and again and again. There's only so many times you need to watch somebody fail to be able to register before you know it's a problem. So what they suggest is that you do 5, then you go away, and you fix all that, then you come back, you do another 5, you fix all them, you come back, you do another 5, and you fix all them. The theory being that each time your problems get less and less, they become less severe, there's less of them, and you don't spend too long or too much money doing 200 tests. Because we work in the internet, particularly myself in the kind of UX design kind of field, there's always caveats. Happily, a couple of years after publishing that, these guys realised that there were some caveats. So they wrote this really useful little summary. So I'm just going to read this because it's beautiful. The answer is 5, except when it's not. Most arguments for using more participants are wrong. but some should be bigger and some smaller. Which, apart from being completely non-committal, is actually, if you read the article where they go into it in depth, they explain that different circumstances, yeah, the numbers do change. So depending on what you're testing, how experienced or how much training the user would normally expect to have to test something. So there are caveats around it, but by and large, for the majority of what people do, 5 is usually enough to get a decent number. Pro tip, try and do 6 or 7, because you'll get a couple of no-shows and probably one idiot. So, do a couple more. But this chap, can you see that at the back? Steve Krug. He's like another kind of godfather legend of usability and usability testing. And he said that testing with one person is 100% better than testing with none. He's kind of right, unless that person's your nan. I did this talk at a meetup a couple of months ago, and one guy put his hand up in the air. He's like, hoo, hoo, hoo. I said, yeah. He said, I work for Stanner. For those who don't know, Stanner make chairlifts for elderly people. So maybe his nan is the right person, I don't know. I still argue that maybe it was maybe his nan's children that bought the stairlift, but point taken. So, usability testing usually looks like this. Although if you remember, Chris gave some really good advice this morning. He said, if you're that person, if you're the moderator, step back, get out of the eye line, because it's supposed to be like a natural scenario. And if you're sat next to them making notes, that's not natural. So step back. But this is good UK. Good UK, not doing it very well, are they, Chris? I never said that. Don't. So that's kind of what usability tests usually look like. But this is still what clients think of when they think of usability testing. They think of this like 10, £20,000 worth of kit in a soundproof room with Mr. Bean on the other side of a mirror. And it's like, oh, come on, do me a favour. Because the thing that annoys me about that is not how people use your products. Whether it's a website, whether it's an app, whether it's a back-end data entry interface, they do not use your software in a soundproof room with ambient lighting and a camera trained on, well, they might if they're in a call centre. But that's not how people use it, so don't do that. I used to work for these people. Nobody booed, that's good. So Amaze they're based in Manchester, but they also have offices in Liverpool and London. This is another former colleague of mine. Can everybody wave to Bev? Go on. She's not as nice as Ali, but she's still lovely. So when Bev was at Amaze, we worked together on some stuff, and we basically came up with this idea for participant recruitment. We were lucky that all 3 of our offices were located in buildings with other organisations, so we'd have like a room on one floor and somebody else would be in a different room on a different floor. In Manchester, it was really good because we were in First Street, which was opposite the Hacienda, so you could look out the window and see the Hacienda, which was always good. But then on other floors you had like the council, all kinds of different facilities within the council, so you'd have like some people doing IT admin, some people doing data entry, social workers, town planning. So you've got all these different people with different kind of socio-economic, demographic backgrounds, different levels of technical competencies, all wandering around your building. Captive audience. So what we did is, we did this, we wrote some of these out. This was actually from a session we did in Liverpool. And we put them in the lift, and basically said, we're going to run some sessions at lunchtime, or at the end of the day. And if you can spare 15 minutes, come and help us fix our website. The language is quite important, how you do this. You have to kind of make it quite informal, but it's about getting them to help you. Kind of come and help us make this better. Try not to use testing if you can. This probably does, yeah. Are we back? Yeah, so you put this up, you put your contact details on, and you sit back and the emails roll in, then you have to fill it. So this style of recruitment, I think Chris touched on it earlier, is good if you're if the thing that you're testing doesn't require that much specialist knowledge, or you don't require any very specific conditions. So this particular one was done for a session where we were testing a ladies' lingerie and swimwear website. So the only preconditions we needed on this one were that you have to be female and you have to use a smartphone to browse the internet, which doesn't rule out that much more than about half the people. This is an interesting one. We nearly didn't put that in, but then we realised you get some really weird participants. So, yeah, if you've got really simple criteria for your selection, this kind of recruitment is really useful. If you're not lucky enough to work in an environment where you've got lots of different people knocking around, or the building security don't like you putting this on the left, which they didn't, then this kind of stuff is not a bad alternative. It's a little bit cliche, it's a little bit Silicon Valley, but it does kind of work. Because if you remember about what I was saying, where people don't use your products in a lab, people do use your products in the street, on the bus, in the shop, while they're sat having a coffee, when they're in the bar, should be talking to their partners or their friends. People are using your tools. So if you go and sit in one of these, have a word with a nice barista, and say you'll put yourself out of the way, you'll be there for the afternoon, you'll play nice, you'll buy lots of cake and lots of coffee for people that you get to test your stuff for you. They're usually pretty cool with it. And what's nice about this is while you're testing, you have things like little Johnny at the next table has spilled hot chocolate all over himself, or somebody pushes past you with a pram, or the espresso machine starts making a really loud steaming milk sound, or pots and pans are clinking, and that kind of stuff happens all the time while people are using your stuff when they're out walking down the street. So if you're in an environment where that's going on, it makes it a little bit tricky to capture and record nicely, but the stuff that you get is really, really good because it's a bit more true to life. So recruitment, for us, because we give people 15 quid, costs 5 lots of 15 quid, which 75? All right, thank you. It costs about 75 quid. If you do it in a coffee shop, it costs 5 cups of coffee, which, if you're in like Costa or something, is probably more than 75 quid. But that's recruitment. It can be really, really easy. So then the fourth bit, writing the report. So you've got all your stuff in place, you've got your hardware ready, you've got your software set up, you've got some people, you kind of do the test. I'm going to gloss over that a little bit because Chris kind of touched on a lot of that. And to be honest, it's a talk in itself about actually doing the test. But writing the report, as a kind of UX practitioner, this is my least favourite part of doing any result. If you work for, well no, if you use a dedicated third-party testing company and you say, get some people to test this for us, they will do that, and they will be very, very thorough in the reporting. And what you will get back will probably be a 20,000 page report, which takes about a week and a half to read. If this is for a client, your client has a day job, so you give him a 20,000 word report, 20,000 page report about everything that's right and or wrong with his website. And it's going to take a while to read. And the beauty about doing this kind of like guerrilla sort of lo-fi impromptu testing is it creates a really nice momentum with the team. You do some stuff, you get out there, you test it, you come back, you've got a few videos that are really short so they don't take long to watch, and everybody's like really psyched, and it's like, cool, we can fix some stuff. What can we fix, client? And he goes, oh, give me a minute, and he's still on page 7. So we found, as I've been doing this over the years, I've found a few kind of like tips and techniques for taking the pain out of this particular bit from our point of view and producing an artifact that's more likely to get used and read. So the first one, it sounds really obvious, but make it a one-pager. Cut all the chaff out of it. Half of what goes into those 20,000 page reports is utterly redundant. It states the obvious because you're paying the company for that report. You're not paying them for the insights, you're paying them for that report, so they have to make the report really, really big. But if you frame it in this kind of guerrilla fast turnaround kind of way, you can get away from all that extra baggage that comes with it. So you make it one pager. And the easiest way to do that is to use bullet point lists. Don't bother writing paragraphs. Nobody cares about how good your grammar is or what your prose writing is like. Bullet point lists, cut to the chase, get the facts down. So this is a really interesting one. When you do the tests, you'll be saying to each person, please can you try and do this? Please can you try and do that? And quite likely the notes that you get at the end of that will say, person 1 did this, did that, did this, then did this, did that, and did this. Person 2. But that's actually quite difficult to follow. It's quite difficult to pull meaning from that. So if you just rejig that around a little bit, do a bit of refactoring on that and structure it by the tasks that you've asked people to do. So you say, task 1, buy a new pair of shoes. And then you say, like, some people managed to do this, some people couldn't do that. It makes it a lot easier to read. It sounds obvious when you say it, but I've seen so many reports that don't do that, and you have to do the arithmetic and do the totting up, saying, all right, that person could do that person couldn't. And it makes it harder to read and harder to process. So if you spend a little bit of time up front doing this, it just makes it easier for everybody who has to consume your report. The aforementioned third-party usability testing specialists get really pissed off when I say this. The purists really don't like it, but when you watch the same people, when you watch a group of people make the same mistakes again and again and again, you start getting a bit of a gut feeling for what you can do to fix this. Quite often they'll say, oh, I couldn't see the buy button because your button says add and it was too far down. So you're kind of thinking, yeah, do you know what, if we made that a different colour and moved it further up and made it say buy, because everybody's looking for buy. So you start getting a gut feel for what some of these fixes are going to be. So if you put that into your report as a recommendation rather than a must-do, then the person reading the report gets some kind of context of how complicated that might be to fix. If you just say nobody could find the buy button, they'll have kittens and like, oh my god, what do we do? Oh, where's that buy button gone? If you go, try putting it further up the page and try changing the name to buy, they go, oh, is that all that's required? So if you can kind of make those kind of suggestions and recommendations, you have to be a little bit careful you don't try and make it sound like this is a guaranteed fix, because it's not. Because what you're going to do, you're going to do that stuff, and then you're going to test it again with another 5 and see if that works. And some of it will work, some of it you'll have broke something else, because that's just what happens. But more often than not, it just makes it easier for people to visualise what that fix is going to be and the amount of effort required, and you're more likely to get the go-ahead to implement that fix if they can do that. So just other stuff, do say when a test passes. So when you embark upon a set of testing, you don't go to prove yourself right. You don't go, this is the most perfect thing I've ever done in the world, let's validate how amazing I am. You go in and you go, right, this is my best stab. I've done some planning, done a few iterations on the design, I'm pretty sure this is about right. Tell me what's wrong. So you're going to get a lot of stuff of people going, couldn't do this, couldn't do that, couldn't do this. And that's great. But just remember that some of the stuff you've done will work. And quite often that doesn't get flagged up by the participant. They're not going to say, I loved how I could do that. It's up to you to go, do you know what, nobody had a problem doing that. So just check that. Because what you don't want to do on a subsequent iteration is break that. If you log that actually, we did this, it worked, so let's keep this. Having said that, as I say, you go into a testing process to try and find out what's broke, what's not good enough. So do focus on that stuff and make them actionable. If the stuff that you know, well, if the stuff that comes out of testing, because people say random stuff during test sessions, and you can drive yourself slightly batty trying to capture all of that. If it's not relevant to what you do, think about really whether you need to log that down or not. If you can't fix it, do you need to log that? Maybe, I'll tell you. So what I ended up doing is, I hope you can kind of see this, see it enough. After doing that for a few times, that kind of process, it kind of crystallised into this idea of a report. So this is how I do my reports now. So they're really short, because they're bullet point lists and they're 1 pages. They're structured by test, by scenario. So this is a fictional one I did for this presentation. It's based on the idea of a to-do list application and testing that application. So what we've got is, the first task that we set everybody doing was create a new item, create a new to-do item. The second one was set a reminder on it, and the third one was edit an existing one. And basically, in this fictional scenario, a handful of people did all that, and I made some notes. But the notes, so we've got this like little colour coding. This has proven to be really popular and really quite important, because green, amber, red, just traffic lights, not rocket science. But what it means is, when you look at a task, you kind of get a feel for how much of it is okay, and how much of it's really, really broken. Don't take that as gospel. I think, as Chris said this morning, some of those red ones, there might only be one issue, but it might be an absolute showstopper. But what it does mean is, if you kind of squint at it a little bit from far away, you get a feel for how well things have gone. So we've got, everybody was able to do this task. And then in this one, once people understood that icon, they were all okay. It's all good. You kind of log that, job done. But then the issue was that actually 3 participants out of 5 didn't understand what that was for. And then, if you see the recommendation there, consider, that wording is quite important, consider adding a label. So you're suggesting a fix. Because you've watched 3 people struggle, you kind of have an idea for what you need to do. And then the other one is the observation. There will be stuff that comes up during a session where you think, oh my God, we hadn't even thought of that. It might not be a problem, but it might just be a thing that you need to remember and tell somebody about. So this kind of amber thing is for observations. So in this instance, once you've created a new to-do list item, a number of participants said that they expected that to synchronize across their devices. That feature might be on your roadmap, but it might not. But if enough people say it, you know what, maybe it should be on your roadmap. So that's a really nice way of capturing things that you might end up wanting to build into the next release. And it stops those really good ideas, those off-the-cuff things that people say, falling between the cracks. That report takes about a day. Once you get into a routine, you'll probably find it takes you a lot less. So what I'll do is, I'll get a load of Post-it notes. Because I'm a designer, I love Post-it notes. Fucking everywhere. Sorry, I keep doing that, don't I? Sorry, video. Get a load of Post-it notes. Do a session. Give yourself 10 or 15 minutes between. Come back out. And then write down all the key points on Post-it notes and spread them all out on the table. Checkout, couldn't find the button. Registration, couldn't remember the password. All that sort of stuff. And then go away. Go to the loo, get a glass of water, reset your stuff, and then do the next one. And then come back and do it again. And if you get somebody else who couldn't find the password reminder, put that Post-it note on the pile with the original one. And then go away and do another one and just repeat. And at the end of it, you get a pile of Post-it notes for different issues, different successes. But the number of Post-it notes is really useful, because you go, oh yeah, everybody had a problem with that. It's really cool. And it means that you don't have to then go back the next day and re-watch the videos to take notes, because you've already got your notes. And they're already written in a way where it takes about 20 minutes to transfer into that kind of document. So it sort of writes itself. So the costs for that, obviously, take a couple of quid off that. And the chunk of that, you only have to buy once. And then you've got your participant recruitment. So about 140 quid in new money. I've sat in meetings with senior stakeholders and C-level people, and you talk for 3 hours about doing this. And if you add up your hourly rate as a consultant, their hourly rate as a C-level, and then you write 140 on a big flip chart, it kind of gets the point across. People spend more time talking about this, waste more money talking about it than if they just did it. I'm a big fan of just doing it. This is a reading list. Don't worry about it. These slides are on SlideShare, so hopefully they've remained clickable on SlideShare. or Google title. There's some really good stuff here around if you're new to testing, different types of testing that you can do on a shoestring. Chris Atherton's one has a really nice series of posts where she looks at different things, and it's a nice introduction to different types of testing. And that's me. Thank you.